When it comes to dealing with conflict in the office, you say it's time to get out of your own drama. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's so tempting to blame others for their behaviors or go into your own whining or crybaby mode about what's happening. We invite people to hold the mirror up and say, how am I contributing to this dynamic? And so the first step in any dramatic situation is to get yourself out of the drama. So if the drama is happening, pretend it's like happening on a stage in the theater. Get off the stage, get into the audience, and observe, how have I helped create this?
Is that hard to do for people, or are there techniques that they can learn to help them do that?
It's incredibly tough because we're all wired to be in control, to get approval of others, and to be right. If you think about it, I think we go to school for anywhere from 12 to 20 years, and all our education system ingrains in us the importance of being right. And I'm proposing that the antidote to our own drama is let go of the need to be right and instead choose to be present. And so you've got to unlearn a lot of old habits.
That would be very difficult for anybody. What do you suggest people do to get down that road a little bit further?
One step is to enlist allies around you who will tell you when they see you slipping into your own drama. For example, do you have friends who will tell you that, hey, you're being a crybaby right now? It looks like you're falling into victim mode. How have you created this dynamic? And people will have the courage to give you these hard truths. Another one is just to be totally open and curious about how have I created this dynamic myself. So openness, curiosity, and listening are key components.
You might have a little trouble recruiting friends, I guess. They might be taken aback by this request.
True friends will actually be grateful to tell you. And if you can, and when they give you the advice, if you can receive their advice without any rebuttal, and no matter how harsh their feedback or even criticism might be, let your mantra become, isn't this interesting? I wonder if that could be true. Because the first temptation when we receive hard truths about ourselves is to rebut them. And I invite you instead to say, I wonder if this is true. Here's also an axiom around this. If somebody gives you some hard truth about yourself, the more you resist it and the more you have to be more defensive you become, the more likely the feedback is true.
That is certainly an interesting axiom, to say the least. And in this day and age where it seems everybody needs to be right all the time, what do you do in a team situation when you might be dealing with other team members or even a supervisor where they all have to be right?
Well, one route is let them. Let them get a win. Oftentimes when people get a win, they win a battle or a skirmish. They don't have to win the whole war, but if you let them win a small component of the discussion, you then can soften them up really to collaborate on the bigger issues. When you don't care who gets the credit, major things can happen. So rather than trying to go to battle with them, let them get a win. One of the things I think is important for listeners is that everything in our life is a choice. You don't have to do anything. Anytime you use language like have to or need to or must or gotta, it's victim language. Now, the consequences of some of our choices we have to live with, but everything is a choice. I also invite people to take 100% responsibility for whatever is happening in your life. No one is doing it to you. And when you can take that position, all kinds of options open up and you step fully out of victim mode. I invite people to examine every relationship they're in, and it can be one of three things. Is it energy enhancing, energy neutral, or energy draining? Energy draining relationships, if we stay in them longer term, are going to have pathological consequences, meaning that your health is going to suffer. So if you can change that relationship into energy neutral by taking responsibility for your own drama and not getting hooked by others' drama, go for it. But if you find yourself in an energy draining relationship, are you willing to end that relationship for your own health? There's a risk that anytime you confront somebody, the relationship may end. And you have to ask yourself, are you willing to take that risk? If you're not willing to take the risk, acknowledge that choice. And you may then have what we call a polite relationship or maybe a mercenary relationship. But when you make the choice to stay in an energy-draining relationship, you forfeit your right to complain. And most people don't want to hear that. The last thing I'd leave you with is that the idea of trust. To be able to have collaborative relationships in any environment requires a level of trust between the parties. And there's an equation related to trust. You can think of trust as being reliability plus credibility plus adaptability, the flexibility and nimbleness of a person, divided by an individual's self-interest. So the more reliable, credible, and adaptable, the more you'll increase trust. The more self-interest there is, the more you'll decrease trust.